Well, you know what? Let's start off there. If you can just kind of introduce yourself, state generally what you do professionally, and then we'll, get into the discussion from there.
My name is Raquel Sanders. I am by profession a high school counselor, as well as getting ready to embark on a higher component of licensure of professional counseling. But I've been in the profession of education for 22 years. 10 of those years I have been a high school counselor, and 2 of those years I was an elementary school counselor. And so for me, being a counselor, being an educator is a part of me. That's what I love. So anyone that knows me knows that that's something that is just within my spirit.
Right.
Something I can't live. So.
Yeah. So the reason why we wanted to have you on, for this just reasoning is, we're coming up on time to, what is normally back to school time. And as we know, for the past, since February, March, our whole world has been turned upside down with this COVID-19 coronavirus, business shutting down, school shutting down. And I think many people had thought that we were kind of beyond this. That's how people were acting anyway. And then there have been, with New York initially being the epicenter, New York also being like the media capital. So all attention was focused on New York. Once New York got their situation under control, and I think people just say, okay, this is over, let's get back to doing what we do. And so now here in Texas, where we have one of the worst outbreaks in the world. Once New York got their situation under control. I'm hearing a bad echo. I'm hearing everything I said twice. Anyway, so with that said, as we approach back to school, from a leadership standpoint, from the president on down, there's this, forcing people to say we must reopen schools. Never mind the things that have to be done to make the environment safe. They just say that we must reopen schools. So as an educator, somebody who works in that environment, what do you see as the biggest challenges today to opening schools and letting everybody back in with hundreds of kids and teachers and administrators? What do you see as the biggest challenges that await our school system?
The largest challenge is for those who are not in the classrooms with us and those who are not in ground zero as it pertains to a child, whether it be daycare center, whether it be public school arena, whether it be, and I would emphasize the public school arena, because we are the most highly disenfranchised people. And what I mean by that is that when they are thinking about opening the schools, there are so many decisions that are being made without the consideration of the educator. If you've noticed, you will hear a lot of districts speaking from different subsets. They talk about 3 programs. They talk about one that's a virtual program in which all of the students are going to be online as well as the teachers, okay? Then you have one that's a face-to-face in which the students are going to come back in and the teachers are going to come back in. Then you have the one that seems to be, to me, in a lot of ways, one of the most political ones is the hybrid, where you have face-to-face and you have virtual. So for me, the hardest thing for us is for us to come in and realizing that every school's mission is to talk about or make sure you ensure the safety of the environment. You cannot ensure the safety of the environment when we do not have the necessary resources to ensure the safety. So for me, at the end of the day, there are a lot of factors that aren't being considered. Number one of the factors is not being considered is the amount of instruction we are going to lose anyway, regardless if you do hybrid or face-to-face. But if you do face-to-face, like for example, In a lot of districts that have the hybrid, they are actually planning for 2 levels of direction. I need people to understand that we are planning for the school year after year. We are planning for your children's education in January of the year of the August before they come. Okay, so changing all of the instruction in the curriculum to better suit the safety and the well-being of the student, and doing it within 2 months or doing it within a month is not good enough. We are losing so many teachers right now. We have a lot that's retiring. We have teachers, we have substitutes that are not even going to be able to come, because a lot of people don't understand that the majority of educators right now, 38% of us are in our 50s and above. Okay, that's number one. A lot of people don't realize is that right now we have so many school openings because you have teachers that are actually quitting because they have no choice. You know, you want to force them to come into the schools, but yet they have families. You know, they have, elderly parents to take care of. And I do understand both sides, but the side that I really, and a lot of my colleagues can agree with me, is that it just seems as though we are being held as a sacrificial lambs. And so you hold, the safety of the student, and I get that and I love that. But you have to hold us synonymous, because we have to be there to instruct and to drive the force.
Right.
You know,
you mentioned resources just now, which obviously, what resources? You in your statements just now, I saw all sorts of challenges. Teachers quitting, teachers retiring, all sorts of challenges. From a resource standpoint, what resources do you believe, if schools had, would help them to better be able to deal with the situation? Is it
one of the number one resources that teachers are missing, and I need people to understand, is the level of insurance. The level of insurance that are held by most schools is not of the same caliber as corporate. Like, for example, let me just place an insurer out there, Aetna. So when you are working for the corporate industry and you have Aetna, and then you working for the educational infrastructure and you have Aetna, those are 2 different plans. And so a lot of teachers are concerned with that, because at the end of the day, if they're putting their life at risk, they are not going to even have enough coverage in order to get the help that they need in event something does happen.
So do you think there should be some type of hazard compensation there, since the insurance isn't up to par?
There should be hazard compensation, but right now the compensation is this. So they're giving the majority of the educational arena are it takes 15 days, when you go in and you have to, stay in for 15 days, right? So right now, most of your districts are leaving it up to 10 days. That's not even equivalent for the number of days you have to actually be in. And then also too, for the additional 5 days, they want educators to use that additional 5 days from the time that they have already saved. So if you have someone coming in right now and they do not have those extra 5 days, then they start getting docked. There have been situations in which they place out a survey or an application for teachers to have the deciding factor if they offer both arenas. If they offer the face-to-face arena or they offer the virtual, they're allowing the educators to choose which one, right? If the educator decides is not chosen for the one that they've chosen, let's say, for example, you choose virtual because virtual is going to work for your family, virtual is going to work for you as a teacher. So right, you're well aware of all of the infrastructure they're going to need, right? So they don't have like an actual platform of how they're going to make that decision. So it's almost, to me, reminds you of a lottery. Some teachers are going to be able to do it, some teachers are not going to be able to do it. So if I'm a teacher and I choose virtual, but the district's like, oh, we don't have enough kids. You are teaching a particular subject area that the majority that want to come face to face are going to do. You're going to be better utilized there. If you don't take that option, then you get reprimanded. And in some districts, if you do not take that option, you don't get the same equivalent of pay as you normally get in being an educator.
So let me ask you this, since it's the first time we've met, Ms. Sanders, and I don't know anything about you. Do you have kids?
Yes, I have two.
You have two kids.
I have a high schooler, and I have a
Middle
high
school.
schooler, and I have one that's entering the middle school.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So let me ask you this, because we're talking about the virtual aspect of things and actually entering the school. I thought about this. So Fort Bend actually opted to do virtual schooling for, this semester and actually this school year. What do you think about the kids, parents that have to work daily? They don't have babysitters.
Yeah.
They're not going to have anybody at home. As a parent, give me your views on that, or your opinion on that?
So for me, it's a situation in which almost the parent and the community and your individual variables, you have to make the concise decision. I just so happen to be in the educational arena in which I have that support, whether it be from my colleagues or my family support, okay? And for me, it's almost like, I don't think people understand how the parameters in which we are undergoing. It's very different. Like, for example, most of our classrooms are not even equipped to be in the social distancing. It's not even equipped. The majority of the classrooms that you have now, if we gut out the classrooms, you have maybe, and I may be pushing it a little bit, 10 desks within the 6 feet radius can be loaded in that classroom. We don't even have
what's the normal capacity of the classroom?
The normal capacity of the classroom in high school, the normal capacity is 30 per period.
30. So they're going to reduce that to 10. Okay, all right.
So what
And
if?
so what you have to do is, like, you have certain districts. Fort Bend, I'm just going to be honest with you. In dealing with what we're dealing right now with the pandemic and the amount of people that we have lost, and the amount we have lost educators, we have lost students, we have lost different people for different arenas. Fort Bend, to me, took the data and they did what they needed to do on the data. Because in order to do quality instruction, you have to have planning and time and manpower in order to deviate that quality instruction. I don't think people really are taking in that. Now, I do understand, like, for example, there's a neighboring district that is still trying to make the decision on whether or not they're gonna be virtual or not, right? So what they did was they sent out a survey to the parents, and they allowed the parents to kind of to register the student whether or not they're gonna have the virtual option or the face-to-face option. So right now you have the middle schools and high schools and elementary. Elementary is a little bit trickier, but for high school, you basically have to have two different buildings. You have to have a virtual building and you have to have a face-to-face building. So let's say, for example, your particular high school, most high schools sit, I'm just gonna say on a good day, at least 3,300 to 5,000.
Yeah, a lot of kids.
Okay, 3,300 to 5,000. Okay, so if it is that the majority of your student body says, 50, let's say, okay, 50% of them want to do face-to-face, you have to deviate and outsource the teachers that you have now. They're not giving us more staff to do both pieces. They're not giving us more staff. So you have to deviate the staff in order to justify it. And the deviation of the staff is going to be contingent upon what types of courses these particular students need. And so it is a very, to me, it's uncharted territory. But at the end of the day, what's gonna end up happening to these particular districts, they're not gonna have enough space in order to be conducive to the number of students that have requested to be in a face-to-face option. Then They don't even have a plan, or the plan has not been communicated on how they're going to know which students to choose out by priority. How are you going to choose the priority? How are you going to choose it? Are you going to choose it due to seniors? Are you going to choose it due to socioeconomic status? Are you going to do it according to the parents, whether or not the parents can work? And then, to be honest with you on this part, how are we going to bus it? How are they going to get there?
All right.
Because we've been told that they have to sit 6 feet distance. I want to know how they're going to sit 6 feet distance vertically and horizontally on a bus when a bus is not.
I didn't think about it.
I've actually I got some experience in that. It's every other seat staggered, but
yeah.
So,
Staggered.
yeah, every other seat staggered.
So you won't have more than maybe 10 kids on the bus at most.
It just that will absolutely not work. That brings up all sorts of challenges.
We're definitely not prepared for this. I mean,
so ultimately, whose decision is this? Is this the district's decision? Is it the governor who just says this is what it's going to be?
TEA,
does their
from
own.
what I understand.
So at the end of the day, there are so many parameters with that political ball that is unreal. Okay, so you have, for Texas, the Texas Education Agency that gives the recommendations and suggestions. In the very beginning in the mid part of the summer, the reason why there was a hesitation on a lot of schools was because the funding, whether it was, I don't know if it was federal or whatever, the funding was going to be maximized only if you were offering the face-to-face option. So a lot of school districts in the very beginning, that's the reason why they didn't have the plan for the virtual option, or wasn't really considering it. It was kind of like a backdoor thing, because here they are thinking in a business mindset, if we're not going to get the funding that we would normally get for the face-to-face option, we won't have enough teachers and enough resources to even educate the students that we have. Then what ended up happening was there were a lot of districts, a lot of superintendents, because what a lot of people don't know, most of your superintendents in this state, they go on a superintendent's call on Fridays, okay? And they sit down in different areas. You have that Central Harris County, you have, Dallas, you have El Paso, you have different ones. And they discuss these particular points. And then what happened was, when a lot of superintendents were questioning, we waiting on TEA to give us whether or not we were going to be, whether or not they were going to not discriminate against the virtual option. Then that's when you had districts like Fort Bend to say, okay, we going virtual. Because you got to, at the end of the day, you got to ensure the well-being of the students. And so for me, as far as my own personal view for me, because I have a different set of variables, I have to consider, I have to consider the worst consequence. I have to consider what is the worst thing that can happen, whether it is for me or whether it is for my children. I have to consider that may be a child, if I send my kid to school, that may die in my kid's classroom. I have to consider that teacher may die at the end of the day. I have to consider that one of the students' parents may die. I have to consider that. Those are the options that I have to consider. So in the decision of my household, that was the ultimate, decision. A lot of people don't know, because there are a lot of things that have happened this summer that a lot of people are not even aware of. And me being and a lot of us, the mental health has risen. It has risen, okay? There are a lot of students that have anxiety. There are a lot of teachers that have anxiety. Our suicide ideation has went up. We have students that actually have killed themselves and no one ever knew they were sad. So it's just a lot of things to me that I think that they aren't emphasizing that they need to emphasize, So it is a hard decision, but at the end of the day, whatever choice that you make, you have to consider what is the worst that can happen in the choice that you make.
Yeah. So, this is such an important conversation. And, when we think about the depth of this conversation that we've had, and then we hear about how it's talked about on the news, you know, it's like we're having a completely different conversation.
9 day.
You know, it's just like reopen schools. They have to reopen schools, and that's it. All this detail about the mental health aspects and the teachers, you know, care for their lives or dealing with, you know, sick parents or sick friends, and this stuff isn't even really discussed. So the final question, you know, we'll go on to other things, and you kind of addressed much of this, but as a parent and also as an educator, what is the best advice that you can give to parents at home watching this as far as the decision criteria that they need to make as far as what they do now? What is the best advice that you can give to parents?
You have to have faith. You have to have hope that it is going to get better. You have to weigh your child's well-being and safety, and you have to weigh who is going to be there to accept them too. I know it's hard as a parent because I'm a parent. I get that, but we are not prepared to ensure the well-being and the safety if the student comes in the building. We are not. No one can guarantee you the safety and the well-being of your child. And so that's not something I'm telling you I heard. I'm not telling you I heard that. I know it, okay? So when you considering that, you gotta consider all those infrastructures. You know, you have to consider that. I mean, and one of the conversations that have happened for a lot of educators is, you know, whether or not we're going to be given the proper equipment to be able to even sanitize and sterilize our rooms. If we have, like for example, they have plans that are out right now. And so as an employer, especially if you're going back, there's a whole list of things in which are going to be the protocols and the trainings of any educator that's going back, whether you're virtual or not, of what you're going to have to deal with in the event if you are in the building face-to-face and COVID happens. So for example, one of the nice scenarios. So if there's a student that ends up testing positive or have COVID exposure in one classroom, let's just call it be nice, high school, one classroom. That child has 7 classes, okay? So we will have to contact all of the students within that student's 7 classes, well as each teachers.
Wow, I didn't think about that.
Kid went to all of those teachers' classes, okay? So when you multiply 7 classes
and a bus driver,
Exponential.
that's 49 classrooms. And then we have to, and you know, every building has cameras too. So those cameras and everything are gonna have to be tracked to see if the kid has ridden the bus, how the kid got their lunch, when did the kid walk down the hallway, which restroom did the kid go in. And see, a lot of people are not getting that. A lot of people not getting that. And then what's gonna be interesting, when we have a teacher that's exposed, we don't even have substitutes to replace that teacher.
Yeah, I heard that too. Now, are extracurricular activities out? I mean,
right now, UIL has come
High school
up
football done
with a postponement. And I want to tell people, UIL has a whole lot more to do with other things besides football. You have UIL for debate. You have UIL for
that's true.
For band. You have UIL for orchestra. You have UIL for Future Business Leaders of America. So you have UIL components for everything. It's just
Chris,
that
you know about that?
it's just that my last was one of the best in the state. But the timelines are different. So how it's going to affect a person in playing football and how it's going to affect a person playing soccer is going to be different entities. Because you know soccer goes mid-drift and then football is in the fall. But they have postponed that. And they have given the recommendation of the postponement until after September. So for me, I'm trying to understand why we opening up any buildings in August. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It's gonna take us, really and truly, it's gonna take us the whole month of August to even meet or attempt to meet the quality of instruction that's needed.
Understood. And this is not for anybody in particular, but if anybody watching has any resources on basically childcare or anything like that, please send it to us so we can share, because one of the biggest aspects that I'm hearing from people, and I'm looking at questions here, are okay, like Fort Bend, for example, all online. People got to work.
I got to work. Yep.
People got to work. So, you know, what's going to happen to their kid, you know, during the day? You know, what resources are available? And the other thing is, this is for you, Ms. Sanders.
And then it's not going to be free. Whatever resources are going to be
exactly.
Free, you know,
so there's going to be expense there,
mm-hmm.
and then Ms. Sanders is giving a point of view from a public school view. Are there differences in the private sector that you think that would be better?
Yeah.
Okay, talk about that. Talk about that real quick.
The reason why in public schools is totally different. It's totally different than private schools is because private schools control who they accept, who they don't accept, and every single piece of funding that they have. And with that being said, for some reason, their community partnerships are very different than public schools. And then the amount of students that they have is easier to manage as well. Okay, so I'm even in my professional counseling arenas and some of my friends, which is interesting. You know, there's a different type of conversation that private schools have had as public schools have had.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah.
It seems to me, in some of the ways, and just from some of the people that I have spoken with and trying to get good ideas with, they relied on that particular cohort of the organization in which they serve. You know what I'm saying? A lot of your private schools are linked up with churches. There's no separation of church and state for them. So they are able to tap into a whole lot of resources without having to always go through so much red tape. The reason why it's so hard for public school to get the same amount of resources is because of a lot of the red tape.
The finances aren't readily available.
And a lot of the extra political agendas we have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm just going to be totally honest with you.
I see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, thanks for this very important conversation. I mean, I've left this conversation with like 1,000 more questions.
Yeah. I mean, we could do this for like hours.
we can. You know, because these are
questions are coming in. So we'll definitely take note of all the questions and try to address them.
Yeah, this. I just think that that's why we have this forum to really explore issues, because it is not covered at this depth in national, and there are millions.
Totally different conversation, like you said. Yeah.
Exactly. Who need to make this very important decision. And then on one hand, you have the education of my child, you have the safety of my child. I have to go to work. What I'm I can't work from home. All these are real issues. I mean, it's like, it's almost like 2020. We just need to call it, like I can, you have a bye week, or it just didn't count.
Just call it a mulligan. A mulligan.
Yeah,
2020 is a mulligan.
Whole year.
Yeah, just scratch it.
Don't even add it on to your age. Whatever age you were at the beginning of the year, you're still that year. This just don't even count. You know what I mean?
What they say? What's that meme that's been going around? I'm not going to add this year to my age because I didn't use it.
We're returning 2020.
Yeah. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't travel anywhere. So.
And also, too, you know what? There's a different type of, with the level of the pandemic that we are in, that affected our whole entire, it wiped out all of our plans, really and truly. I'm just going to be honest with y'all, it did. Had it been maybe in the yellow and the green, maybe it would have been a better situation. But the fact that it's still in the red and it's getting worse.
And to be there for a while too.
It changed the fabric of what we had planned. I'm just going to be honest with you. So now it's kind of like, in a lot of ways, everybody's walking in the dark, trying to find a light of reason.
they're looking for some just reasoning. What I did there. Miss Sanders. Thank you for the great insight. We're going to talk about some other things right now. You're welcome to hang out and reason with us.
Yeah, definitely.
That they don't like to just hear a bunch of men talking.
Yeah, they want the ladies.
Yes.
Okay.
We have people
want the
online
ladies.
also saluting you, Miss Sanders, for
Yes.
keep
Yeah, man.
For some great
still
insight.
being in the school system, still helping out,
Exceptional
still
worker.
having a passion,
Commendable.
So
Thank
you
you.
have a lot of support out there.
Yeah, man. Miss Sanders for president. All right. So let me start this off. I want to share my screen real quick.
Oh, Lord. Watch them now. Technology.
Can you see my screen? What you see on the screen there?
Darth Vader.
All right.
A
Okay.
boss.
Do you know who that is?
That's a
Yes.
boss.
Darth Vader. All right. So,
That's a
you may